then. What's up, everybody? That was about 20 seconds of straight noise for me. How's it going? Back. I told you I might come back, and I decided, you know what? Why not come back? I'm just going to hang out here for a little bit, maybe share that I'm live again. And, yeah, I hope you guys are all doing well out there in YouTube land. YouTube land, you know how it is. I will have to say that I had to run some errands, and I had some, when you're not doing that, I don't know if it was recording that time, I think it was, but I switched apps to share it, we'll see. But what I was saying is if you're at one of these places like DMV or whatever, they're not, I mean, not saying they're not cool, like the people that work there, but the whole attitude is set up differently than a private place. It's interesting. Very interesting. Like when you go to like a AAA to do your driver's license, you can do that here in Connecticut. They have a much different attitude. But I always had a really good, I figured it out early with the DMV, which was, so, anyway, shared it out, see if anyone's around. It's a little later in the afternoon. I'm going to test the time, and I really have a feeling like I want to do more solo live streams and, you know, obviously have a guest on once in a while too, but because I feel like I have a lot that I could talk about. I could just fill time, and why not? Maybe I could come up with ideas for comedy this way, you know, funny ideas. And they don't always have to be while I'm pretending to drive the green screen behind me. I could actually do it when I'm home too sometimes, and this way I can pay attention to the chat, maybe bounce ideas off of them, you know, to see what they think. Especially when it comes to jokes. But anywho, what was on my mind? So much on my mind. I guess I could talk about some comedy ideas that I have. Maybe flesh out ways to make them funny. It's like the most unfunny thing, but it'd be cool for people who are interested in comedy, and I can use this platform as a way to like share ideas that way too. So I have a couple different ideas. One of the ideas I have is, well, you know, when I was in the Marine Corps in boot camp at Parris Island, South Carolina, hoorah! I think you have to say hoorah, like it's obligatory after you say Parris Island, South Carolina. Hoorah! See, I was there from September 5th. That's when I left for boot camp anyway. So September to the end of November, beginning of September, end of November, and it's, you know, this was in the 90s, but it's really interesting because the climate there was nuts. When I got there, it was like a jungle, you know, because I mean, it's September, but I think it's still like August, the end of the summer. It was hazy, hot, and humid. It was crazy. And downpours and stuff. Not that I really minded. I actually like being outside, so and getting wet, I don't mind. So I was a good fit for the Marine Corps. It was perfect. There's a good story. I might have told this. I mean, I'm allegedly an INTP, and so, oh my God, the guy in front of me, his plate is "I'm so fly." He has some kind of Dodge, something, I don't even know. It's some kind of race car looking thing with two doors. It's not like a Viper though, or anything like that. I don't even know. It's like newer, but it says "I'm so fly." I don't know, man. I think if you have a plate, you know what? Do you, man? You are pretty fly. Pretty fly for a guy in a Dodge. Pretty fly for a Dodge guy. Anyway, I digress. So I was in boot camp. It was toward the end of boot camp. You do all this like combat training and stuff, and it was the part where they had us like crawling through the mud under barbed wire, you know, with our rifles and like shooting over our heads. But I guess they simulate shooting. I don't think they really shoot live rounds. I don't know. Maybe I think there was one where it was live rounds actually. Anyway, so we had to duck under and fog of war type stuff. So before that, because we got to this spot, it's set up just like a big training field in the woods, and there was other platoons that were going through or whatever, and so they had us just on the side, like running down these trails, and they wanted us to practice. So they'd be like, hit the deck, and we immediately just had to like jump onto the ground, just fly onto the ground flat. And so we, you know, they'd have us in a line, and there'd be a drill instructor, and he'd be like, all right, next or whatever, and they'd run, the next person would run down the trail, and then the drill instructor would say, hit the deck, hit the deck, and the person would hit the dirt. So we were on this trail doing that. That was a really good explanation. And I noticed I was near the front because I'm really tall, so they did height order all the time for things. And I noticed that they were telling people to hit the deck near this big mud puddle that was there. And a lot of the guys, most of the guys were jumping to like the side of it or in the middle of the trail away from the puddle. And when I went, it was like really hot. Like that's what I was talking about before, the climate. It got hot. Jump right in the middle of this puddle. It was amazing. Good. I knew I was going to be muddy anyway. I mean, I saw the guys that were going through. I was going through before. You know, I saw what I was about to go through soon, and we brought a change of clothes, so I knew. And they were like, "That's how you do it." So it's great. Just do what they want, you know, jump in the middle of the puddle. But anyway, the weather there was insane. It was really hot, and then it got really cold toward the end of November as I was there. I think we got out. I graduated right before Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure we drove home and had Thanksgiving. So, what's up, Sarah? Sarah G. Clyde Sparky Air. What's going on? Mad Maxing always knows driving Connecticut highways. Yeah, totally. It's cool though. Like I got a flow with Connecticut highways now. I'm I just chill now because I could be a really good driver, a really good fast driver, and I have really good instincts, and I've performed some amazing feats. I call them what do I say when I do it now? I forgot what it is, but every once in a while, sweep moves. Every once in a while, we got to pull sweep moves on the road, but I used to do it a lot more. Now I just, when it's necessary, you know, I just kind of chill because, like he said, people on the roads are nuts. This lady earlier, before I started live streaming, she was like, it was a 2-lane kind of like highway or whatever, and I was in the faster lane, she's in the slow lane. She just wandered, like moseyed on over without her blinker or anything, just made a full lane change. She must not have saw me. And she was still in front of me, but it was, I'm like, lady, come on, what are you doing? So I passed her allegedly in the other lane. I just went around her because there's no one around. And it was better than jamming on my brakes. And I just looked over and she's just like doing her best. Anyway, it's good though, because it shows you where you have work to do, right? If you get annoyed on the roads. But this, the Marine Corps, the weather changes were nuts. So I just, I remember like freezing my ass off one day. We were out there just freezing. And then like the next day, I think it might have been the day before graduation. That's what it was. The day before we graduated, our families were there. We got to walk around base with them and stuff. It was pretty cool. We got to dress in our uniform and stuff. And it was really hot. We had our short sleeves on. And then the next day we were graduating. So we had to like march and do all this stuff, formation, and be out in the parade grounds. And it was freezing. It was crazy. So that was a really polarizing, interesting experience. But I think though, I've talked a lot about the Marine Corps and the effects that it's had on me. And then also we talked about the effects it's had on the world, the world. We talked about that in our Full Metal Jacket episode. I'm going incognito, guys. I'm going in like my purple shades. Just found these. My sweet frog skin Oakleys. Yeah, I'm a brand. I just like Oakleys. You know, listen, people, just leave me alone. I get good military deals on them, and once in a while I buy them because when I was a kid in the 80s, I would see the frog skins, and I'd be like, I want frog skins. But there's no way I was ever going to spend $100 on sunglasses in the 80s. So, because I was like 12 or like 11, I treat myself. But anyway, that's just a fun comedy rant. So anyway, I was talking all of this about the Marine Corps and boot camp for a reason, because there was something I was talking to Elizabeth with a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about bugs or something because the mosquitoes finally started coming around. And I was like, when I was in boot camp, we used to have to stand there at attention and we would just be attacked by the bugs. And they had these things they would call sand fleas. Now, I think they were just, well, not just gnats, but there was some kind of crazy gnat that you get in the swamps of southern South Carolina. In the swamps of South Carolina. And they were intense and brutal, and they would they would climb to any exposed head orifice to get your head out of the gutters, guys. And they were brutal, but we would just have to stand there and deal with it. And now, I see why they're doing it, because they want to make sure that you can keep your composure and your discipline no matter what's going on, because, you're in Marine Corps boot camp, so there's some chances, even if they're small and not a time of war when I was in, but you might end up in combat or in a situation where you really need to keep your composure despite everything else that's going on around you, even being eaten by bugs in your ears and nose. So okay, it's all good. So I was telling her about that, and she was just like, that's crazy. How could you do that? It actually upgraded me in her mind, I guess. Not that I even knew I could be. I'm so amazing. No, so it's just like hazing, any kind of hazing, but it is a part of the training as well, because like I said, they use whatever they can. I mean, humor, they're super funny. The drill instructors I'm referring to, they're so funny. We talked about this a little bit in boot camp episode. I don't think I brought this up, but I probably told the story before, but I'll tell it again because you guys are cool enough to hang out. But one time we were sitting around in boot camp, I just say, we're just sitting around. Our drill instructors used to give us these classes, and they just have us sit around in a semicircle, like Indian style or whatever. Can I say that still? I get my video taken down. That'd be funny. You can't say Indian style, Brandon. So we'd sit around. I forgot exactly that we were doing this thing, and I forgot what they were telling us. They would like teach us how to tie ties and knots and like how to kill people. All these fun things they teach you in the Marines. So the drill instructor is like up there teaching us how to like kill somebody or whatever. How to bomb a village. And and he's like, somebody open a window. It's hotter than a nun's cunt in here. And like, this was like 1994, I'd never heard that one before. I mean, I know it's probably an old one now, but I'd never heard anyone say that. And I went to a Catholic school, so it was fucking funny. A bunch of us, I don't know if I bursted out laughing though, because I had some pretty good discipline. I was just like, I would bite my tongue or whatever, I had a strong will, and I'm like, I'm not going to let these fuckers get to me. I was like stubborn, but some people did laugh. Maybe I did. I don't know, whatever. And, he just flips out, and then we just all started doing push-ups, or we had to all run outside to the big sand pit. They had this big sandbox outside of all the barracks, like in the courtyards, where at least 70-something men could get in there and like do push-ups and sit-ups and side straddle hops. I'm telling you, it was amazing. It really, that's the thing though. I'm not like bitching about any of this stuff. I'm not somebody, if you read my book, shadowworked.com, you can get it. If you read it, you'll know that I don't look at myself as a victim because I went to boot camp and like, oh, they did this stuff and they try to brainwash me and all this stuff. It's like, no, I signed up voluntarily with my own 18-year-old maturity to go join the Marine Corps, so they would be negligent if they didn't teach me how to do all these things and train me, but whatever. But I get it. It is brainwashing, and, I definitely don't agree with a lot of the wars that are going on. So I have a very nuanced view, but I'm not going to sit there and blame them for all my problems. But no, they definitely did help me a lot. I learned a lot, and there's a lot of things that I still use to this day that I've learned. But the whole thing with the sand fleas is crazy because I was telling Elizabeth this, and she was just like, "Wow, you're so awesome. That's insane," basically. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? It's kind of like the Gom Jabbar. It's the same concept. Like they're trying to weed out who are the animals from the humans, right? That's how they say it in Dune. We got to see who the animals are because we can't trust animals with all this power. Same thing in the Marines. They can't trust somebody who's going to freak out over some bugs in their ear with a fucking rifle, you know, and maybe some grenades. They're just like, I don't know. So it's like a Gom Jabbar, but I'm telling you, like, I think I've never had my hand in a box of pain, but I think that I might choose the Gom Jabbar over the sand fleas because not only is the Gom Jabbar just a one-time deal, you know, the sand fleas were like a constant thing for 3 months on and off. I mean, you know, they had screens on the windows, so it's not like we were sleeping with them, but when you were camping and stuff, but it was whatever. It was fun. And, but the Gom Jabbar, it's like one time and it's some pain with your hand. And if you know it's just a mind game, you know, you could just repeat the litany against fear over and over again. And so what I'm saying is, Paul Atreides ain't got shit on me. Gom Jabbar my ass, you know, like so I think there's a premise there though for something to say on stage. So I think Dune is known enough, and if not, I could just, you know, explain it. But the thing is to be, how am I going to be very concise and quick and like to the point? Because this whole 10 minutes that I just been talking about it would not work on a stage unless people are coming to worship me. But that's, you know, that's the pitfall you don't want. And I've seen that too. I've seen comedians that have made it big time, and you go to like their show and they're just lobbing softballs, you know, it's like, but good for them. People love it. Like Dice was funny though. But people that would just go there and chant, hickory dickory dock, you know, it's fucking nuts. That's what beer does to you, everybody, I'm telling you. Anyway, what's going on in the chat? What's up, Mr. Nargis? Sarah G. Sand fleas. We have sand flies, and they suck. Yeah, they're probably really sand flies, but they just call them sand fleas because it's the Marine Corps thing, you know? They got to sound all badass. It was interesting, though, boot camp, and I'll tell you why. When I first got there, because I had some advanced knowledge of what was going on, this kid that was also from Connecticut, this guy, he was a little older than me, and his friend had just went through boot camp, just graduated like a couple months before. I guess they signed up together, but because of their MOSs, they had to go at different times or whatever. But so anyway, he told me, you know, the guy told him the whole deal. So he basically was like, listen, when you get there, just, you know, stand at attention. Don't ever look at them, especially in the eye, you know, like... Don't look at the drill instructors in the eye. Be as loud as you can. You know, you have to say sir before everything. You have to speak in the third person. Sir, Recruit Smith requests permission to speak to drill instructor Sergeant Hess, sir. You know, like that. Sir, Recruit Smith requests permission to make a head call, sir. So you have to even request permission to speak. So they want you to be like a peon. You know, think of like a college frat. I actually was in boot camp with this guy who had gone to college and been in a frat. I guess he didn't graduate. I don't know, because he wasn't going to be an officer, or maybe he didn't know. But he was in boot camp with me, and he said that going to be like, he pledged a fraternity. He said it was harder. He's like, it was harder doing that. So it's all the same kind of stuff, though. I think it comes from the same, you know, knowledge base, probably. The whole psychology is just another few pages out of the book of psychology. Training soldiers, I'm sure, is the same way that you want to train people that are in frats, because you want that same camaraderie and brotherhood and that same esprit de corps that we had in the Marine Corps. This is my fraternity brother. You know, we had to touch our dicks together. So now, since we all had the same secret that we've done, we're all going to hook each other up stuff like that. We didn't touch dicks though in the Marines. I mean, people might have, but I didn't touch anyone's dick. But I do have a funny story because they had all these troughs. Like when you went to go pee, it was just a trough. So we would just be standing next to each other. And, you know, it doesn't matter how shy you think you might be or whatever. When you're in that situation, you're just happy to be able to pee because most times you have to really pee because all they do is have you drink water. You have these 2 canteens and they're just like, drink water. And sometimes they'll even have a skit stand on line and empty a whole canteen and then pour it above our heads. And the first time I remember they would have us drink it a couple times, you know, they'd have us drink it and then they would go by and knock on it to make sure it was full. Then they'd have us drink it, like guzzle it, right? A full canteen. They'd have us all do it at once, and then tell us to put canteens away. And then a couple days after they started doing it, they went around. They told us to, or they're like, all right, now pour the canteen over your head, because some people, that's what they do. They always want you to scam. I've noticed, like, they're looking for people who are going to try the easy way or their way, because it's funny too. If you think about it backwards, it's like there's no way they haven't seen everything in Marine Corps boot camp. I mean, that's a whole other story, but the things that have happened in there, they've seen it all. So of course someone's going to not finish it all, just put it away, right? So a few people did that. So one time they were like, all right, pour it over your head. So some people like dumped full or half or whatever canteens over their head. But the guy, like I said, I had a friend, and his friend told us, just do everything they say as quick as you can and just be as loud as you can. So I did that, and I was just screaming at the top of my lungs, like, sorry, yes, sir. Like a fucking maniac. Like if I screamed like that, they'd call the police if I was in public. So I lost my voice for a day. It was great. So when they had us come in, it was like after the first few days or week or something, they did evaluations with us. Like we did a one-on-one with our drill instructor, basically our senior, who was like the head drill instructor. And you still had to talk third person and everything, but you didn't have to yell. You could just talk. And it was just like him and you in there, so it got it was a little relaxed. You know, it was like a casual Friday atmosphere. No, not really. So he was talking me up. He's like, oh, you got these fucking high ass scores, because, you know, they have everything. So he's like, how's my ASVAB? He's like, yeah, these high ass scores, you know. He's like, you're fucking doing everything great, you know. He's like, yep, I see, we got our eye on you, you're doing well, you know, you're killing it, or whatever. He was like talking me up. And I must admit, I'm smoking myself out. 18-year-old Brandon was, you know, I was feeling it. I was like, yeah, I'm the fucking man. I'm like killing it. That's the thing. It was just a head game. So, not that I wasn't doing well, but since I was doing pretty well, I'm sure they did it to all the guys who were doing well. They would say that. But, he also said that I played. He's like, oh, yeah, you're playing dumb, aren't you? He's like, I see these high scores. He's like, you just play dumb. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't play dumb. That's not totally my defense mechanism, sir. And so anyway, I was playing dumb. And so after that, and I'm live. Was there a pause there? Because I tried to go to my GPS. I don't know if it cut off. So yeah, I just started falling to the middle, and I did pretty good. I did really well, and I just stayed toward the middle. And at the end of all the boot camp, they were giving out mail one day, and it was like the drill instructor was just fucking around with everybody, and he was like saying their first names, because usually they just say your last name. And with me, it was Smith, and because there was other Smiths, they called me Smith Bravo, because a B, Brandon B, but they'd be like B Smith, but instead of B, it's Bravo, because that's the phonetic way to say it. You know, you have to do everything right in boot camp. So Smith Bravo I was, and the other Smith was Smith Charlie, because he was a C, and that's the phonetic. His name wasn't Charlie, though. It would have been funny. But they would call him Smith Cheesy, because he was kind of, you know, he was not as amazing as me. You know, he was one of those guys that would kind of fall behind sometimes, so they would call him Smith Cheesy. He was cool, though. Good guy. He graduated, too, so, I mean, he made it. But anyway, they were giving out mail, and they were like, he was just saying everyone's name, like being funny, the drill instructor, because normally he wouldn't. So he's like, Smith. Brandon J. And he's like, BJ? He's like, holy shit. He's like, your name's Blowjob, and I'm just finding this out now? Because there was like a few days left. He's like, I could have been calling you Blowjob the whole time. And I was like, yep, that's right, sir. Didn't even realize. Not that it would even have bothered me. I honestly don't even care. The really cool thing I saw with this poor guy, his name was St. Andrews. And so they would call him Standrews. They would, because it was St. Andrews was his last name. And they would just call him Standrews, and it annoyed him so much. And he would let it show, like he would get mad. And they would just yell at him. But they would do it because they knew it bothered him. And then also, everybody had their head shaved. And the back of his head was flat, kind of pretty flat. So they called him Flathead. And that would really get to him too. And I told him, I'm like, dude, they're just doing it to like fuck with you, man. Like, you know, he looked like he was probably some badass Albanian guy or something. You know, he was a little guy, but he was definitely crazy. So I could see why he was getting really bothered by it. Poor Standrews. And one day I saw good old Standrews. We had to, I forgot what it was, but they told us to get we were standing online. If you see Full Metal Jacket, it's the same thing when they stand online and they have to like do push-ups for Private Pile's donuts. Well, the standing online is like a common occurrence. It's always like, get online, and we stand there. They're like, all right, get your packs now. So we had to run and get our Alice packs, which is like our backpacks. And so we ran and back to attention. We're holding them. They're like, all right, dump them. And then we dumped all the gear out onto the floor. I think they were having us get ready for something. And so the guy across from me, when he dumped his, he forgot that he had a bunch of crackers and jelly in there from the chow hall and cereal and stuff, because we had these little cereal packages that you're not supposed to take out of the chow hall. Because like in Full Metal Jacket, we all know you're not supposed to take chow out of the chow hall in Marine Corps boot camp. You can eat as much as you want in the time they give you while you're there, but you can't take it with you. I would steal cereal all the time. So you had these cargo pockets, and it was perfect. You just take the box off and you had it in the bag, and so everybody did it, but he dumped it out and there's just a bunch of crackers on the ground, poor kid. And we were with our senior drill instructor at the time, so he could be if he wanted to, but he was normally pretty cool, and we were rushing to do something, so he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll get you later, Standrews. And a few days later, one of the asshole drill instructors was with us, and his job is just to be a dick the whole time. And he was walking up and down. He's like, I smell crackers. He's like, Standrews, I smell crackers. It was great. And he was a white guy too. I'm not being racist to anybody. That's how he sounded. He's from the South. But yeah, it was really hilarious. Poor guy. Not for him. I think we all had to do push-ups, but it was worth it. We laughed about it later. You got to laugh about it, because if you're not laughing, not while it's going on, but later, because they give you like an hour of your own time where you can write letters and stuff before we got to like do lights out and stuff. So we would just sit around in the back, basically have comedy shows. That's how we got through it. So even when you're in the darkest of times, sometimes you could turn to comedy and it'll help. That's what I want to do. So I had this idea of the gum bar and the sandfly. That's one idea that I just spent 30 minutes talking about. How do you guys like that? And I included several boot camp stories. I have so many fun boot camp stories. There's a couple that are pretty crazy too. One drill, I think I talked about this before, but one drill instructor in the platoon that was, it wasn't our platoon, but we were going through, in the beginning, they put you through the swim qualification. They want to make sure you could swim. So in the first like week or two, I think you go to the pool, and you go in the pool with like all your gear, your boots, helmet, full pack, and a mock rifle. So it's this giant rubber rifle. It looks just like a real one. And a drill instructor had that was there checked out his own rifle and brought it and was pretending like it was a mock rifle, and then like blew his brains out in front of everybody. So that was crazy. Even though I didn't have to witness it, they told us that it happened, and you know, they were actually being really cool. It was weird. But you know, when shit like that happens, I guess it kind of breaks down the wall of, pretend boot camp land to a little bit, a certain extent, not totally. But yeah, so we had some really crazy things happen. But I guess that's what happens when you get a bunch of people together that most of them are really young. I mean, the drill instructor wasn't young, but from what I understand, they're under a bunch of stress and pressure. And if they don't do well, it can ruin their career. So people who are lifers that want to stay in the Marine Corps and they want to move up the ranks, they have to do this and do it well, get good marks on it or whatever. So, yeah. That's the Marine Corps, everybody. Whoa, yeah, that was intense. I've been through some intense things. Another thing, this wasn't boot camp, and I have talked about this before. But when I was on an aircraft carrier, I saw somebody get hit with a tail hook up from an aircraft because I worked up on the flight deck, so I was very knowledgeable about where you can walk because you'd have to walk in between planes, under planes, like it was crazy. So you had to know where to go on each plane. And there was this guy up there because we had like these helmets on with air muffs and like goggles and stuff. And he was walking under a plane when they were testing it. And they always test a hook and it just came down and hit him. But he didn't get there wasn't any blood or anything. But I'm sure he broke bones or something. He did live. He was all right. So that was crazy. It happened like right in front of us. We're like, what the fuck? Where's that guy going? And then boom. And then the medical team ran up there and they were like, watching them up there was pretty comical. I mean, we were, because they were getting blown around. They had like a stretcher. They were just not doing well up on the flight deck. But, yeah, they didn't stop the ops. They had to keep the planes landing or taking off or whatever was going on. There's missions. We were in theater, mission accomplishment, then troop welfare. So, but I had heard some stories. I heard a story about a cable snapping when a plane was landing and someone getting killed. I didn't see that or wasn't. But anyway, there was a guy in the carrier who. So the way the carrier works is sometimes, especially when you're low rank, you get sent to work with the Navy for like a month at a time. They rotate you in and out, and you get sent to work in the chow hall, which I did. I worked in the chow hall, and all right. So they had, I'm just using the terminology from Full Metal Jacket. He was, I think if you weren't a certain weight, I was never really worried about this because I was, I was fucking skinny. But if you were over a certain weight for a height or whatever, they did this thing where you had to, go to like mandatory PT or something once a day or one. I don't remember how it worked because I wasn't on it. But so anyway, so he had all these things going on, and what happened was he went missing, but nobody realized it right away that he had went missing because the Navy thought he was with the Marines thought he was with the Navy, all this stuff. Because so I was in the Marine Corps. I worked on jet aircraft for the Marines, and our squadron happened to be a Navy vessel because sometimes it happens. So anyway, that's a quick story about that. So he went missing. And they did like a whole, finally when they figured it out that he was missing, it was like a day or like a day later or something. It was crazy. He didn't show up. So they did this whole man overboard drill, which was pretty pointless because and so they thought he was hiding in the ship and that he was suicidal or something. They weren't sure. So they kept calling over because they have this 1MC intercom system over the ship. It's just like Star Trek. And they had the chaplain Charlie. The chaplain was on there. He was like priest or whatever, that's what a chaplain is, and he's on there and he's like, Lance Corporal Mayo, it'll be okay. He's like, just come out. We could just talk about it. And everybody, we were ruthless. So we were pretty much making fun of him. But what happened was, turns out he somehow fell off the ship. Now, I don't know exactly how. He says his story is that the door swung. He was out on one of these sponsons. A sponson, it's like a little balcony off the side of the ship, the carrier. It's not like it's below the deck, but it's not on the water level. It's like they have different ones. Anyway, And he said that the door swung and hit him, and he fell. And what do I identify? I think a man. So anyway, a man, baby. And but I think someone said this. I don't remember confirming, guys. This was like 20 years ago, but I think they said the doors swing in. You know, it's like the doors in that place that we're not supposed to talk about. The wooden doors that swing out. You know. Anyway, or swing in. I mean. So he might have jumped, is what we're saying. But he got picked up by a Pakistani fishing boat. Even if he jumped and he decided to end his life, when he hit that warm water in the Indian Ocean, because we had just went through the Suez Canal. We were in the Indian Ocean, about to head into the Persian Gulf. It was a med cruise, so we were in the Mediterranean mostly, but we did do that little stint for a few weeks. So anyway, he fell off the ship. He was picked up by a Pakistani fishing boat in the middle of the Indian Ocean, which I don't know if you've ever been out like on a body of water where you can't see land anymore, like a Great Lake or a giant lake or the ocean or whatever. But even in Long Island Sound, where you could see both sides, it's hard to see a person floating. And he didn't have anything that was really, he had his coveralls on, which are dark blue. So he had like water camouflage on, and he has dark hair. So he got, like, talk about synchronicities. And so he got picked up. They brought him to the village in Pakistan. He called his parents from the one payphone in the village. And they ended up flying out there, getting him somehow. And he flew back to the ship, and he had all these Pakistani, like, robes and gear on. It was crazy. And then he ended up going home. And he got to be on 2020. And I'm still friends with him on Facebook. So this is like a story you can actually go verify. He was on 2020, the TV show. It was crazy. And they talk about him all the time. Like, well, I went to a boating class. This was in 95 that happened, I think. 95, 96. I was in a boating class in like 2005. And they were talking about, because the way he survived, that's what they teach us in boot camp. So that's what he did. And so when I was taking this boating class, it was given by the Coast Guard. And the guy was like, there was this Marine who fell off a carrier in the Indian Ocean. And I was like, I know that guy. Because they were talking about ways to survive if you fall in the water. And so they let me tell the story. And I was like, we think he jumped. I'm like, don't listen to the hype. Like, he wasn't, but then it's good though. He decided he wanted to live. He found something to live for in the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. And when he came back, he had all these like bite marks on his face. I guess there was all kinds of fish that were coming up and trying to take a bite out of him. And he's severely lucky that he didn't. There's a lot of sharks in the Indian Ocean. That's all I'll say. So, but yeah, the crazy things that happen. Thank you, Sarah G. Yeah, the wild stories. There was also another guy so two people on the aircraft carrier, I didn't know him. There's like 5,000 people on the carrier, but two people died on our 6-month cruise from Norfolk, Virginia, back to Norfolk, Virginia. And we went across the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, mostly in the Adriatic because of what was going on in Kosovo and Bosnia and Albania and stuff. But we did go down the Persian Gulf through the Suez Canal. But when we hit our first port, I think it was the first port we hit in Trieste, Italy. Trieste. One of the Navy guys, they found this guy just floating in the harbor, like dead, obviously. So we don't know what happened with him, but he was somebody who didn't have a lot of friends. Like they would tell us just to hang out with people. So I just hung out with a bunch of people and would just go out. I mean, I was 19 in Italy with like money, because when you're on the carrier, you can't spend it. So you're saving all this money and you could drink, like you could do whatever you want. So it was a lot of fun. I never had an espresso in my life before until I got to this, that I can remember. I had one and I was like, whoa, what's this? And then I had several more. So we had a really good time, met a lot of cool people. Another cool thing I saw too was the carabinieri, which are, the best way to describe them is like state police in Italy. So you have la policía, I think is how they say it, policía, the police, and then you have the carabinieri. Oh, and I'm back at 24 minutes and 44 seconds. I think I've been going long though, but that's what it says. Anyway, so the store I was telling the carabinieri, they're like these militarized police, and they carry these guns with straps. They just always have them. Like they're like resting their arms on them. They're like ready to use them. And they have these sticks, long sticks with a little stop sign at the end. It's just a red, just like a stop sign with no words. About yay big. And they told us, our higher ups, when we were like, all right, you're in Italy now. This is the carabinieri. This is what they look like. If they hold up the stop sign, lay down on the fucking ground, because that's your final warning. They're going to shoot next, and they're totally authorized to do it. And the thing is, you would be like, oh yeah, these guys are probably like grizzled veterans, right? Like these grizzled veterans who like have seen action, and you know, they're trusted with these weapons. No, these guys were like kids. Like they were young. I mean, I was 19, but they looked like they were my age or maybe a couple of years older. So it was great. But anyway, when I was in Trieste, we were hanging out at this cafe at night, and there's a bunch of us there, and this guy started to get loud with us. He's this Italian guy, and who's hammered. He's an older guy, and he's just like, ah, rah, rah, rah. He's like yelling at us. Bobbity boo. You know how they speak Italian. You know, you've been there, right? You've seen Family Guy. Bibbity bobbity. And he started getting loud with us, so the carabinieri guy came over and immediately took care of the situation, because they know we're there. You know, they know there's a ship there, and they're not trying to start trouble. We're not starting any trouble, so they're cool with us. They realize they're getting our money. You know, it's a cool situation. So he's like walked over. The couple of carabinieri guys said something to him, and they're speaking Italian, and the guy's just going on and on, you know, blah, blah, blah. And finally they yelled something, and he's like, and they held up that sign. And we were all like, ooh, like we didn't know we were going to get entertainment tonight. They held up the sign, and the guy just got down on his knees and was like, put his hands on the ground. I was just like, oh, no. And they just, I don't remember what happened. They moved him along or cuffed him, or I don't remember. But all I remember is that was intense, because we thought, I didn't really think the guy was going to get shot because he didn't have a weapon or anything. But still, they told us, and it seemed like that's the case, because the way the guy acted, he freaked out like they were going to shoot him. So I do know one of my sergeant that was in when I was in had been on was in Italy in the 80s, and he said he saw one of them like shoot a dog or something, like a stray dog in the alley or something. It's like they're crazy. I was like, okay, thank you for the warning, because I'm tall, you know. I I'm not an easy target like this way, but up and down this way, catch the spray, you know, the stray. So I got to hit the deck. Full circle, hit the deck. But thankfully I didn't see any fire. The closest I ever got to anything dangerous was the flight deck. They say the flight deck is the second most dangerous place other than a combat zone in the military. So I could definitely see that. I almost got hit with a plane my first day. That was fun. Anyway, I'm almost back, so maybe I'll tell that story. It was not much of a story. I was just following my corporal, and he went the wrong way, and we went up this onto the flight deck through this side way, and the planes were taking off that way, and a plane went over. Like some guy pulled us down, and a plane went over our head. We were in this catwalk that's on the side of the flight deck. There's like this catwalk where all the doors open out to, because you know you don't want anything sticking up if planes are taking off. So yeah, we almost got run over by a plane. That was fun. We had hearing protection, everything at least, so we didn't, you know. But you feel it. It's crazy. When I would be standing there, when they test the planes, they put them to, they call full military power. They power them up, and like the cartilage on my nose would be shaking. You know, I had like earplugs and muffs on and everything, but you're standing there maybe like 10 feet away from it, off to the side, and it's just like rumbling. It's crazy. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for checking out my second live stream of the day, Sarah G and nothing 8. I don't know. I'll get it later as soon as I hang up. Mr. Nargis, Quiet Sparky Bear. Thank you guys all for joining me. More Laws, More Problems is my website. Check it out. Buy my book, shadowwork.com. Donate. Give me your firstborn. Send me some oranges. I don't know. That's what the orange guy says, right? What was I going to say? Yeah, so all that fun stuff. And until next time, guys, make sure you check out the Oversharing Show tomorrow. We're going to be going live. So check it out. Probably around 2 o'clock Eastern. We're going to talk about the Dow Day Ching versus 45 and 46. So you don't want to miss it. See you later.